For 5 centuries, the Kali Bein was one of Sikhism's holiest rivers, where Guru Nanak is said to have received divine revelation. By the 1990s, 6 towns and 40 villages had turned it into a toxic drain. Then in July 2000, one monk stepped into that filth bare-handed, with no funding and no government support. 3,000 volunteers followed. 160 kilometers of dead river were brought back to life by hand. President APJ Abdul Kalam declared that every state in India needs a Sant Seechewal. But behind this celebrated transformation lies a fragility almost no one talks about. The Kali Bein is more than a river. For Sikhs, its banks are the birthplace of revelation. In the winter of 1499, Guru Nanak Dev, then a storekeeper in Sultanpur Lodi, entered these waters for his daily bath. According to the Janam Sakhi texts, he vanished beneath the surface and was gone for 3 days. When he re-emerged, he spoke of seeing the Timeless One, Akal Purakh, and declared, "There is no Hindu, there is no Muslim." This moment is remembered as the dawn of Sikhism. Today, Gurdwara Bear Sahib stands at the very spot where Guru Nanak is believed to have meditated under a jujuba tree for 14 years. The tree, still alive, roots the legend in living memory. Pilgrims arrive year-round, especially during Guru Nanak's birth anniversary. They follow the river's winding course, stopping to bathe at the Gangastan Ghats, and recite prayers before gathering at Bear Sahib for kirtan and communal meals. Even before the annual festivals, villagers would gather to clean the riverbank, a tradition of Kar Sewa, selfless service, passed down through generations. The river is woven into Punjabi folk songs, painted in Janam Sakhi illustrations, and invoked in daily prayers. Its water is not just a resource, but a thread connecting faith, community, and the land itself. For centuries, the Kali Bein was a symbol of purity and awakening. The rituals, the songs, the stone steps at Bear Ghat all speak to a river that shaped spiritual identity. It is this sacred weight, carried by pilgrims and custodians alike, that makes the river's later decline so wrenching and its restoration so urgent. Along the banks of the Kali Bein, the river's sacred reputation could not shield it from decades of neglect. By the late 20th century, the waterway had become a dumping ground for 6 towns and more than 40 villages. Untreated sewage poured in daily, turning clear currents into sluggish, foul-smelling channels. The Kapurthala Railway Factory, built in 1975, added a steady flow of heavy metals, chromium, lead, and cadmium into the water. Government monitoring in the 1980s found effluent levels regularly exceeding legal limits by nearly half. Black oily plumes snaked downstream, and the once ritual baths became impossible. Stagnation set in as irrigation withdrawals reduced the river's flow to a trickle. By the 1990s, stretches near Jalandhar and Hoshiarpur stood nearly still for months at a time. Water hyacinth, an invasive plant, spread unchecked, choking the channel and blocking sunlight. Satellite images from the early 2000s show nearly half the river's surface covered in dense mats, which starved fish of oxygen and triggered periodic die-offs. The riverbed itself rose as silt washed in from fields, creating isolated, stagnant pools during the dry season. The damage seeped underground. Groundwater wells near the river showed nitrate levels far beyond safe limits, with heavy metals and pesticide residues detected in more than half of tested samples. Local health records tell the human cost. Clusters of chronic kidney disease, rising rates of certain cancers, and a spike in respiratory illnesses were recorded. In some villages, the water was labeled unfit for drinking, irrigation, or even ritual use. The Kali Bein, once a symbol of purity, had become a source of fear and disease for the communities along its banks. In July 2000, the Kali Bein's fate turned on a single act of resolve. After years of unanswered petitions to government offices, Sant Balbir Singh Seechewal, a Nirmala Sikh monk, stepped barefoot into the river's stagnant, weed-choked water. There was no grant, no official backing, just a saffron-robed figure knee-deep in sludge, hauling out hyacinth and garbage with his own hands. Bystanders watched as he worked alone, day after day, refusing to wait for outside help. Seechewal drew on the Sikh tradition of Kar Sewa, selfless service, framing the cleanup as a sacred obligation, not a bureaucratic task. He reminded villagers that Guru Nanak's revelation in these waters was not just a story from the past, but a living call to action. There was no budget, no government machine behind him. Instead, he relied on daswand, the Sikh practice of giving a tenth of one's earnings or effort to serve the community. Families brought whatever they could: a shovel, a meal, a few hours after work. Children and elders joined in, inspired by the sight of a holy man laboring without complaint. Photographs of Seechewal, turban heavy with river weeds, began to circulate in local papers and Punjabi diaspora newsletters. The image was stark: one man against a river of waste. But the message caught on. In the absence of state funding, the movement grew from faith and the conviction that rivers could be restored if people stood together. Seechewal's solitary entry into the Kali Bein was not just an act of protest, it was a spark, igniting a wave of voluntary action that would soon swell far beyond the banks of Sultanpur Lodi. Word spread quickly from Sultanpur Lodi to villages up and down the Kali Bein. Seechewal's solitary labor had set a powerful example, but the true force behind the river's revival came from the thousands who answered his call. Within weeks, farmers, shopkeepers, schoolchildren, and entire families began arriving at the riverbank, many still in their work clothes, carrying whatever tools they could spare. The ethic of Kar Sewa, service without expectation of reward, drew people from all backgrounds. Some brought food for volunteers, others donated bricks, shovels, or even their tractors. Gurdwaras organized work parties, and diaspora Sikhs sent funds and equipment from overseas. By the end of the first year, nearly 3,000 volunteers had joined the effort. There were no wages, no government contracts, only the promise that each hour of labor was an offering, both to the river and to the memory of Guru Nanak. Teams formed along the 160-kilometer stretch, working in shifts to clear hyacinth, dredge out silt, and haul away decades of dumped garbage. Women and children stood side by side with elders, sometimes working ankle-deep in mud for hours at a time. Village after village joined in, their names painted on signboards along the riverbank to mark each community's stretch of responsibility. The scale of the effort was staggering. In some places, entire schools closed for a day so students could help. Retired soldiers, truck drivers, even local politicians picked up shovels. The movement's strength lay not in any single leader, but in the collective conviction that the river could only be restored if everyone took part. The work was grueling, but each cleared section brought a sense of pride and hope, a living proof that ordinary people, united by faith and shared purpose, could reclaim what had been lost. Crowds gathered at dawn, sleeves rolled up, ready to face a river that had become nearly unrecognizable. The work began with the simplest tools: sickles, baskets, iron rods. Volunteers waded into knee-deep sludge, hacking through mats of water hyacinth that had sealed the channel for years. Every handful of weeds and garbage pulled from the water felt like a small victory. In some stretches, the riverbed had risen by more than 1 meter from decades of silt. Teams dug for hours, loading mud and debris into tractor trolleys, hauling it away to reclaim the channel's depth. The effort spanned the entire 160 kilometers. Villages divided the river into sections, each taking responsibility for their own stretch. Where banks had collapsed, volunteers shaped new embankments by hand, laying brick by brick to prevent future erosion. In places where the old stone gats had vanished under years of neglect, new steps were built to restore access for pilgrims and residents. Fruit trees and flowering shrubs were planted along the banks, providing shade and helping to stabilize the soil. The sheer volume of labor was staggering. Over 12 million kilograms of hyacinth and debris cleared, hundreds of thousands of bricks set in place, and dozens of new access roads built for maintenance and community gatherings. There were no paid contracts, no government machinery, just the steady rhythm of shovels, the clatter of bricks, and the hum of voices working in concert. Each cleared meter brought the river closer to its former self, and each day's work strengthened the resolve of those who believed that, together, they could bring the Kali Bein back to life. Spring returned to the Kali Bein in ways that once seemed impossible. In the months after the riverbed was cleared and banks rebuilt by hand, something extraordinary happened beneath the surface. Groundwater monitors in villages like Piney and Kajor recorded a steady rise, sometimes more than a meter within a single season. For years, wells had run dry by late spring. Now, water levels crept upward, and old hand pumps sputtered back to life. Farmers who had watched their fields turn brown spoke of a quiet relief as the river's flow became perennial again. Hydrological surveys confirmed what locals already sensed: natural springs, dry for decades, began to bubble up along the upper reaches. The Kajor Spring, once written off as lost, poured clear water into the channel year-round. In Piney, children gathered to watch small fish dart through riffles that had been choked with mud just a year before. By 2009, 3 major springs, Kajor, Lambi, and Piney, had revived, each measured at flows matching pre-pollution baselines. The river's pulse, long stilled by silt and neglect, grew stronger with each passing month. Wildlife followed the water's lead. Kingfishers returned to the banks, their calls echoing at dawn. Egrets began to nest in the new groves, and local fishermen cast their lines for rohu and katla, species absent for a generation. For the first time in years, the river's presence was felt not only in ritual, but in daily life, irrigating crops, filling cattle troughs, and anchoring the rhythms of the village. The transformation was not just ecological, but emotional. The sight of flowing water, the sound of springs, and the shimmer of fish became proof that collective effort could bring a river and a community back from the brink. Restoring the flow of the Kali Bein meant more than dredging silt and clearing weeds. The real breakthrough came with a simple, low-cost technology that villages could build and maintain themselves. Seechewal and his team designed a 4-stage treatment system buried underground beside each village. Raw sewage first enters a settling tank where solids drop out. The liquid then moves through an anaerobic well that breaks down organic waste without oxygen. Next, it passes through a sand and gravel biofilter where bacteria finish cleaning the water. Finally, the partially treated water flows into an open pond lined with plants where sunlight and roots polish it further. Gravity does most of the work, with no expensive pumps or chemicals required. Local masons and technicians learned to build these systems using bricks, pipes, and solar-powered blowers sourced from nearby markets. The cost is low enough that even small communities can afford to install and maintain them. By 2022, more than 150 villages along the Kali Bein had adopted the model, each tailoring the design to their needs. Farmers now use the treated water for irrigation, cutting their reliance on deep wells and diesel pumps. In many places, groundwater levels have risen, and fields once threatened by drought now stay green through the summer. The Seechewal model has become a blueprint for rural wastewater treatment across Punjab, a homegrown solution built from the ground up. Recognition for the Kali Bein restoration arrived from the highest levels. In 2006, President APJ Abdul Kalam visited Sultanpur Lodi and walked the newly cleared riverbank with Seechewal. Addressing the crowd, Kalam declared, "Every state in India needs a Sant Seechewal." His words echoed in newspapers across the country, reframing the monk's labor as a national example rather than a local curiosity. The media followed suit. Time magazine named Balbir Singh Seechewal one of its 30 heroes of the environment in 2008, the only Indian on a list that included climate scientists and global campaigners. The article described the transformation of the Kali Bein as one of the most dramatic examples of river restoration in South Asia, crediting community action and religious motivation over government intervention. Reporters from national dailies began citing the Seechewal model as a blueprint for rural wastewater treatment, and environmental policymakers took note. The story of a river reborn by volunteer hands now carried the weight of official praise and international attention, lending credibility to a movement that had started with a single man in muddy water. By 2015, the Seechewal model had moved beyond Punjab's borders and entered the national spotlight. Policymakers in Delhi took note of the river's revival, and the Ministry of Jal Shakti began referencing Seechewal's approach in official briefs. The Namami Gange program, India's flagship river cleaning mission, launched pilot projects across 5 Ganga Basin states, drawing directly from the decentralized, community-driven methods pioneered on the Kali Bein. Government documents outlined plans for over 1,600 villages to install similar 4-stage wastewater treatment systems, with central grants earmarked for construction and training. Parliamentary debates cited the 160-kilometer cleanup and the mobilization of 3,000 volunteers as proof that grassroots stewardship could complement official programs. In these discussions, Seechewal's work was described as a living blueprint for river restoration, not just a local miracle. The optimism was real, but so were the stakes. As the model scaled up, expectations grew that community action could succeed where top-down schemes had stalled. Yet, the next chapters would test whether this template could withstand the pressures of larger rivers, denser populations, and the complexities of national implementation. Mass fish deaths on the Kali Bein have become a stark measure of what happens when sewage treatment systems break down. In July 2013, over 4,000 kilograms of carp washed up near Jandiala after a tannery's effluent spiked ammonia levels far beyond safe limits. 8 years later, another wave of mortality struck. This time, nearly 3,000 kilograms of catfish and tilapia perished downstream of the Lodian sewage plant. The cause was a monsoon surge that overwhelmed the treatment tanks, forcing untreated municipal waste straight into the river. In June 2023, the pattern repeated. Water samples from the Banga Gurdaspur stretch showed ammonia at 35 milligrams per liter, more than 30 times what aquatic life can tolerate. Heavy metals like lead and chromium also exceeded legal limits, traced to a breach in the underground treatment network at Barabakna. Audits revealed that the Lodian plant, designed to process 5 million gallons a day, was operating at less than half capacity, with chronic mechanical failures and a 68% non-compliance rate for ammonia and coliform standards. Each of these failures erased years of progress in a matter of days, leaving regulators scrambling for answers and communities to confront the river's ongoing vulnerability. Water quality data from the Kali Bein tells its own story. In 2004, dissolved oxygen levels struggled to reach even 1.5 milligrams per liter. That was far below what fish and aquatic life need to survive. By 2022, after years of community-driven cleanup and decentralized sewage treatment, measurements at multiple stations showed dissolved oxygen rising to an average of 4.2 to 5 milligrams per liter. Biochemical oxygen demand, a key indicator of organic pollution, fell from 12 milligrams per liter to just 3 milligrams per liter. Coliform bacteria, once counted in the millions per 100 milliliters, dropped to under 1,000, a threshold considered safe for bathing by World Health Organization standards. Nitrate concentrations, which had spiked to 45 milligrams per liter during the river's most polluted years, now hover around 12 milligrams per liter. Heavy metals like lead, once as high as 0.15 milligrams per liter, have been reduced to a fraction of that, though still not always within official limits. These numbers, confirmed by Central Pollution Control Board surveys and peer-reviewed studies, offer concrete proof of what thousands of hands and years of vigilance have achieved. The Kali Bein's transformation is not just visible in clear water and returning fish, but in hard evidence gathered by scientists who once wrote the river off as lost. Today, the Kali Bein runs clearer, but it is not immune. Recent fish die-offs and new pollution show how fragile progress remains. APJ Abdul Kalam once said that every state needs a Sant Seechewal, yet lasting revival still depends on local hands, not distant policies. The lesson endures. Rivers can heal, but only when communities refuse to look away. What would it take for us to protect ours?